to find peace in the being of life versus the doing of life. And sometimes the answer is to do that work on our inner world and find contentment. I want these big lightning bolts to come in, and that's not how it happens most of the time. Most of the time, it's very quiet whispers coming from your internal guidance, and that's why I say you have to be still. But whatever you do, I want you to disrupt it. As you start doing that, figuring it out and planning, recognize, oh, right, I'm kind of figuring things out, but I actually really don't know that bigger vision of the what. Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to find clarity in your life, in your work, in your leadership, in your business. And I'm going to do it through some storytelling, but I'm also going to share with you this two-step approach to finding clarity. I have spent a lot of time with folks who come to me because they don't know what's next. And I've seen the same pattern over and over again that people take. And also I've learned it through my own patterning and how to break it. So let's get into it. Let me start with a story. I had one client of mine, let's call her Jackie. Jackie came to me because she was at her wit's end. She didn't know if she wanted to get a new job. She didn't know if she wanted to move cities and states. She didn't know what was next with her life. She just knew that she wasn't happy. And she had even hired a coach before me, and they worked on her resume and applying to jobs, and all of that fell flat, and she still didn't get unstuck through that work. And one of the things that she was doing was focusing on the how, focusing on doing stuff before figuring out what she actually wanted. So for example, working on your resume before you really know what you're going after is going to be a very hard process to figure it out. And in our work together, what she ended up realizing was what she actually needed and wanted was to find peace within herself, to find peace in the being of life versus the doing of life. And this is something she couldn't have predicted, that this is really what she was here to figure out. And in our time together, she decided she wanted to stay in the job she was in, and she found contentment there. And she also stayed in the city she was living in because she realized she did find community there. And she also stepped into a new relationship in that time. So it's funny, right? Because we are tempted to see our life through doing and seeking and searching. And sometimes the answer is to do that work on our inner world and find contentment there. And from that place, who knows, maybe in 6 months or a year or a couple of years from now, she may be ready, but finding out who she was in this moment and coming to stillness and acceptance in just being was her what. And what happens when you focus on the how first, what do I need to do? How do I need to get to this new place I want to be? Then what you're doing is you're putting the cart before the horse, right? And you are often going to waste a lot of time and energy because you don't have the anchor in your what. So what do you do then if you can't help but think about execution first? You can't help but think about how. For example, if what you want is a new position, and so you keep thinking, okay, well then, all right, then that means I need to talk to these people, and that means I need to work on my resume, and that means I need to, upgrade my personal brand, like whatever those things are. If you can't help but think about what you want in terms of what you need to do next, then here are some tips for how you can shift your focus from the how to the what. First of all, write down those things that you're thinking about if you need. Just, capture it somewhere because you can always come back to it. You can get it out of your system by writing it down. But whatever you do, I want you to disrupt it, right? As you start doing that, figuring it out and planning, recognize, oh, right, I'm kind of figuring things out, but I actually really don't know that bigger vision of the what. So once you disrupt it, you can say, okay, let me come back to the what. What is the vision? How do I want my life to look? How do I want this project to turn out? What do I want this relationship to look like? How do I want to feel? What would be a hell yeah if it was presented to me? These are ways that you can get back to that focus, that North Star of your what. Now, I'm saying this like that's easy. Oh, let me just like think about what my vision is for my life, or what's my vision for like my next role or where I want to live. For some people, that can be really hard. I'm one of those people. And for some people, they can, daydream all day and have these beautiful visions and know exactly what they want. So if it's harder for you, then here are some other tips for what to do if that what doesn't come readily for you. The very first thing I would say is if it's not coming readily, is to lay it down and actually let it go, because you're likely in a forcing mode in that I need to answer this question of what I want. And if you've been inundated by this, if you've been holding this question for a while, and if it's starting to feel heavy and cumbersome and overwhelming, then put it down. Let it go. Put it on a shelf. And I know for some that's easier said than done, because you have this urgency, right? It's an impatience about, what do I do? But let me tell you, putting it down, and you can do this for whatever time. If it feels really, really hard, put it down for 24 hours. If 24 hours feels too hard, put it down for 5 hours. I mean, hopefully you can put it down actually for more like weeks at a time. Setting that expectation. I'm not going to worry about this thing for like a week or two, because then your nervous system can come back and be relaxed. And that's when you can get more information from yourself. That's when you can be open to receiving information and messages. So that's the first thing, is if you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm like, what do I want next? Put it down and see what happens. The second tip, if you are having a hard time figuring out what you actually want, is shut down the outside noise. Yep, social media. Yep, family, friends, all of that. Because what happens when we're trying to figure things out is we're just taking in all this information, and that's making things more confusing. It's not creating clarity. It's creating information overload and decision fatigue. So be very conscious about what you're letting in to your ears and your eyes. It's a diet basically, right? For your brain to come back to itself, for your heart to come back to itself. So pay attention to what you're consuming in your eyes and in your ears, so that you can find some silence and you can listen to yourself. Now, this might sound contrary to that second piece of advice, but my third counsel is to reflect on the messages that you've received from people who are very, very close to you, who love you very much, who have your best interest in mind. Because sometimes when we don't know what we want, if we can be open to what has been said about our superpowers, about our joy, about our gifts, sometimes that can lead to some really big ahas that were right there in front of your face. I'm thinking of 2 interviews I did on this podcast where my guests were talking about their path being really influenced by folks that they trusted and that knew them really well. And one of them was with my interview with Anton Gunn, and the other interview was with Benjamin Wolf. So listen to their stories, go back to those episodes. And those were done in the summer of 2025. So listen to those. I think they're inspiring if you're feeling a little bit stuck. Okay. The fourth piece of advice I have for you is don't give your inner critics any time. And I am not going to go deep into this, because you know that if you've listened or watched this podcast, you know how passionate I am about inner critics. But when we're trying to figure out the what, we have to be very careful that we're not letting our inner critics in at this time, because they will stop any dream before we even give ourselves permission to dream it. So I'll give you a quick example of when I was trying to figure out whether or not it made sense to get a second home, my husband and I. And the closer that we got to pulling the trigger and saying, yes, I'm buying this home, the more confused I got, the more unsure I got. And that is because my inner critic was coming in and giving me all the reasons why I shouldn't do it. It doesn't make sense. All the fear, all the anxiety, all that stuff came to the forefront. And I had to put those fears and those inner critics at bay so that I could really honor what I really wanted, what actually felt good. Okay. So tip number 5 is if you are struggling if you've tried all these things and you're still struggling with getting a finer point on your what, then take steps on any hypotheses you may have. So what this means is maybe you have an inkling about, you want to move to another city and you have that city in mind, but you're still not really sure. And you're having a really hard time finding that absolute clarity. Then maybe go take a trip and visit that city. Take a little step in the direction of that hypothesis and see how you feel and see what happens. And that can be very clarifying for you. In fact, I took that approach when I quit my corporate job in 2018. So when I quit, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to look for another job in another company or maybe even come back to the same company. I didn't know if I wanted to build my own business. I had no idea. But what I knew was that I wanted to get a coaching certification. And that was my anchor. And so that's the step that I took. When I quit my job, I had that lined up and I didn't have any other knowledge about what was going to happen next or what I wanted my life to be. And so I took that one next step and that led to the next step of, I got a few clients. And that led to the next step of, let me build a website. And that led to the next step of, starting to create social media content and putting myself out there. And so it was this gradual, I guess I do want to try this entrepreneurship track. And so I found the clarity bit by bit by bit. And even today, I'll be quite honest with you, right? When it's time to think about what do I want for my business? What do I want my life to look like? It can be challenging for me still. And so I take this advice to heart with myself. So I hope it works for you. Giving space to the what is really about developing your human skills, those human skills of introspection and deeply understanding yourself. And it will support you in big decisions and small decisions. And you can even start doing this work by making really small decisions based on your own intuitive gut, to trust yourself, to come back to what do I want? What do I want? It might be as simple as, what do I want for dinner? Is it this or is it that? Check in with your body. How do you feel? When you think about sushi versus Italian food. And start to trust yourself in terms of what it is you desire. Sitting with your desires is giving space to just being without doing. And that can be really uncomfortable for a lot of people. So if you're feeling that way, I get it. And if you haven't done it, then the great news is that by doing something different, you're going to get different results. That's just the law of nature. So if you try this, my guess is you're going to find something come to the surface. And this requires being patient with yourself, right? It requires giving more space than maybe you're comfortable with or are used to. We are so, inundated with messages of speed and figuring out quickly and instant gratification, right? So this idea of giving space and time to the what is very uncomfortable. And I just want to acknowledge that and name it and say, also in my life experience and in helping a lot of people find clarity, giving that time and space is one of the most important components to identifying your what. And it doesn't happen on your timeline. It's not your timeline. You're not in control. It's going to happen when it's meant to happen. And that can be an uncomfortable thought. The other thing I want you to know is that when it comes to the what, I think we want, I don't know, I speak for myself. I want these big lightning bolts to come in and tell me like, this is what it is, Tosca. Like, this is the next thing you need to do on your business, like, yeah, write a book, and then it comes and it's like, yes, okay, I'm clear. That's not how it happens most of the time. Most of the time, it's very quiet whispers coming from your internal guidance. And that's why I say you have to be still. You have to cut out the noise. You have to sit with yourself and trust that you're going to get the clues. So one of the things I want to give you a heads up about is that it's easy to dismiss the whispers. It's easy to dismiss it as, oh, I don't know, that was a fleeting thought versus, oh, that was actually like a really important message from my higher self, from my soul self, from my, spirit self, however you want to say it. And so when we're not used to listening to it, it can actually come and pass us by and we don't even recognize it. So that's, again, where the slowing down, where the paying attention, where your awareness will help you in receiving those messages that will help you anchor in the what of your life, the what of your career, the what of your leadership, all the things. Yeah. And I'll end with this. I'm in a very patient state right now with this kernel of an idea of hosting a retreat. And it's just the seed of an idea. But I'm not jumping to the logistics of, oh, how would I do it and where would I do it and how many people and what's the content? No, I'm sitting with the what. With what do I want to create? Who do I want to serve? How do I want to feel in this? And I've been doing this for months, just letting it like simmer on low because it's not front and center for me right now. And by doing that, by giving myself permission to let it be on simmer and not try to figure it out, it keeps me out of overwhelm and it keeps me out of a forcing energy, so that I can design something in good energy, in excitement and joy energy, of anticipation energy. And what can get created from that place is so much more beautiful than what gets created from approving energy, from a forcing energy, from a you gotta figure it out type of energy, if you pick up what I'm putting down. Yeah, like, look, there's a lot of noise out there and there's a lot of disruption, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what field you're in, or no matter what's going on in your personal life, right? Like, there's just a lot going on. And so this idea of giving yourself space for the what, finding your anchor, finding a kernel of clarity before you move into the how, I think will serve you. And I would love to hear your stories of how you're doing this. And please reach out if you're just like, wait, I'm not getting it quite, or like, I need some support. Reach out, let me know. I'm happy to support you in this shift from the how to the what. And you can contact me in this platform that you're listening or watching on, and easy to find. So thank you for coming to the Unlock Lab. I am just sending you so many blessings and prayers for you to find the clarity of your what. I know it's within you. So trust yourself and sit with yourself and discover the magic that comes from that. All right. Thank you so much. Love you. Take care and ciao for now.